Hi everyone, this is Melissa Vasquez with you again. In this PowerPoint, I will be discussing Prop 12 and how the regulations for this proposition will be used uh, and how. Hi everyone, this is Melissa Vasquez with you again. In this PowerPoint, I will be discussing Prop 12 and how the enactment of the future regulations relate to the theories set forth by the founding fathers. To give you a background on Proposition 12, this was a measure found in last year's ballot. If you might remember it, it established minimum requirements for confining certain farm animals. So, for instance, for pigs, we would have 24 square feet minimum by 2020, 1 square foot for chickens, and 43 square feet for cattle. In the event that these minimum requirements were not met, it would prohibit the sale of meat and egg products until these were found to be in compliance. So some of the supporters for Prop 12 included a variety of animal welfare organizations, including the Humane Society of the U.S. On the other hand, the opponents were mostly coalitions of egg farmers and industry experts. But Prop 12 wasn't the beginning of it. Back in 2008, Prop 2 came about, and Prop 2 prohibited the confinement of farm animals in a manner that did not allow them to turn around freely, lie down, stand up, or fully extend limbs. One example would be the egg-laying hens in battery cages. So the regulations were enacted so that it enforced enclosure requirements for hens. And in the making of these regulations, we see a little bit of all theories, including Woodrow Wilson, Taylor, and Weber. One of the main concepts was the use of subject matter experts in the making of these regulations. So it used people that in the making of the regulations, it used specific people knowledgeable in this area. It included state veterinarians, scientists, and even industry farmers. How did the industry farmers come into play? Well, once the proposed rules are set out by these subject matter experts, the industry has a certain amount of time to agree or object to these proposed rules. So that is one thing that is still being used today. It also, one of the other concepts that are still used today are the prescriptive rules. Again, that comes down to the making of regulations, which describes the who, what, when, where, why, and how. In the earlier example, CCR 1350, what the scientists and veterinarians did, because the proposition wasn't specific enough as to the space required, they determined, for instance, for chickens, they determined that a bird with the wingspan to have a full wingspan and completely standing up, it would require at least 116 square inches per bird. So one of the things that would need to be updated based on the essays or writings of the theories would be, I believe it was Wilson who touched on it, how much influence voters have in with politicians or in politics in general. So what would be a good thing to change or update here? Well, it proponents and voters, when they're voting for specific measures, they may not necessarily be aware of what they're getting because they do not have the facts based on scientific data or expert opinion. So, for instance, for Prop 12, voters generally thought they were going to get chickens in this picture, spread out through the fields, and in reality, this is not really what they're going to be getting, at least not in all cases. For the most part, voters are not aware that that increasing or say having cage-free chickens, it still means that they're going to be in an enclosed area and fairly cramped, although not as much as in cages, as you see in the picture in the right. The other thing that they may not be aware of is how these kinds of environments might affect food control. So for instance, having a caged facility actually gives the farmers increased controls in food safety, while having them in open areas, such as the picture in the right, which is still considered a cage-free facility, has decreased controls in food safety because you're not able to control how the where the eggs are being laid. So, in conclusion, what I would like to how I would like to end this presentation is that overall, when it comes to administering new policies, we have a solid foundation. It is still being used today, and for the most part, it's somewhere where it can begin and then blossom from there. However, when it comes to the politics, it something that I personally feel it would need changing is educating the voters. As trends change, we need to keep educating the voters when it comes to having scientific facts, so they can make a so they can make better decisions. And with that, I will end my presentation. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.